The image is seen on the screen, the book The Unseen Hand, written back in 1985 by Ralph Epperson. It's not available in bookstores anymore, but you can find it at some online resellers. And if you do decide to purchase this book, you'll find out why it's so hard to make it financially in this economy now. Today I'm going to be talking about the ownership mentality. Do you have an ownership mentality? Unfortunately, in today's times, most of us don't. We see it all day, every day. People complain that the government doesn't do enough for them. People complain that their boss doesn't pay them enough. People complain about the people in the neighborhood, not taking care of it, not cleaning up. We're always expecting others to do things that we can go ahead and do ourselves. When we look at our society here in America, we see that the government is spending 62% of the budget on entitlement programs alone. In the land of opportunity, which the United States has been described around the world, that's a real sad situation for us to be in. Success doesn't happen overnight, it happens every night. Most people want to own a business, but based on our ages, the reasons why they don't are different. But the overwhelming truth is that regardless of what age we are, it's basically some kind of fear that's controlling us. Some of us have a fear of failure. It's kind of hard not to have a fear of failure with the way society conditions us. The school system makes us feel bad when we earn an F on an assignment, a progress report, or a report card. We're ridiculed if we make a bad play in sports, and the coaches a lot of times have some colorful language when that happens. And it's a sign of embarrassment to your teammates when something like that happens to you. We go into the workplace and we get fired for making mistakes. So it's understandable that people reject failing because it's not a feeling any of us like. I remember meeting a guy and we were just talking, and we got to a part in the conversation where we were telling each other what we did for a living. And I talked about owning a business. And he said, I know this will probably sound bad to you, but I just like somebody giving me a paycheck every 2 weeks. Now we have to ask, is that an ownership mentality, or is that an entitlement or dependent mentality? When you give others control, you normally live a mediocre lifestyle, and you live an unsatisfied lifestyle. Even though business owners work hard and long hours, they are normally the most fulfilled. Even if they make less money, they're fulfilled because they're enjoying what they're doing and they feel like they're actually making a difference instead of being put into a mold because that's what a job calls for. They feel like they have a sense of freedom. They feel like they're not being controlled. If we're honest with ourselves, all of us want freedom in some aspect. We want the freedom to choose when, where, and how to work. We want the freedom to realize our dreams and goals. We want the freedom to make choices without wondering what it costs or whether we can afford it. Just because the majority of people do something doesn't make it right. It takes a strong fish to swim against the current. But most days of the week, most of the fish are swimming with the current early in the morning and late in the afternoon. It's called traffic. So why do most people go with the flow when 46% of people believe working for self is a safer path to financial freedom and security? What does your life mean to you? Most people get up every morning, go to a place that most of them hate, to work for somebody they don't particularly care for, and then they want to try to act like they're happy. Somebody else is controlling us and our lives. Our boss tells us where we can live, what type of car we can drive, where we can go on vacation, where our kids can go to school. Most of the school decisions are based on, public education because private education is so expensive. They tell us what types of activities our kids can participate in because let's face it, the activities that our kids want to participate in are in most cases not free. They tell us what types of food we can buy, They tell us what type of restaurants we can eat in. You know, there's a difference in taking your kids to McDonald's and then going to a place like Fogo de Chao. And you know, I'm not saying there's something wrong with McDonald's. I'm just saying, you know, what experiences are we giving our kids when we limit them to the places that are right around the house instead of taking them out and letting them experience some other cultures, like maybe some Greek food or some Mediterranean food or something like that. The boss tells us what types of hotels we can sleep in when we travel. Tells us what type of health care we can have, and it tells us how much we can get a charity. And how does he or she do that? They sign the paycheck. A couple of years ago, I heard a guy say if you take boss and turn it backwards, he's a double SOB. We have fear of ridicule. We don't want someone to talk about us for achieving more than them in a negative way. Sometimes we think we can be happy when we are equal to those who refuse to do anything to move their own lives forward. It's a short-lived period. I remember when I ran track in high school. Our head track coach was legendary. He had won regional titles, he had won a state title, and he had a consecutive 17-year streak as far as district titles were concerned. And when we came through, he continued that streak as well. He had a reward system. You know, most of us who had any experience with track and field, know you get cotton sweats. And based on your performance, you would be allowed to wear the newer, fancier sweatsuits. I hadn't earned the right to wear the fancy sweatsuit, and some guys had. And as a badge of honor, coach would let us wear them to school on the day of the track meet. Like I mentioned, I hadn't earned the right to wear one, and one of the guys at school asked me where was mine, and I went into defending why I didn't have mine. I also have to say, this guy who was asking me this question was one who had quit the track team because he felt he was better than some of the guys who had beat him out in his chosen events. You know, I had got into defending myself, and I had remained on the track team. I had went to defending myself to a quitter. So we should never get into trying to impress other people, especially when they are doing nothing worth talking about themselves. Some of us have a fear of success. I know I did. The problem is society only measures success in monetary terms. And we are made to feel guilty about wanting to earn money by going into business for ourselves. I had been speaking for a few years at my own expense when I listened to an interview with a gentleman who was in the speaking industry. He came across very sincere and said if anyone had any questions, they could email or call him. So when I got in front of my computer, I emailed him and gave him a little background on myself and mentioned I had been speaking for free for a few years at the time and asked him how to position myself to earn some income. You know, pretty simple question in my opinion. This guy did an internet search on me, then told me it seemed like I was only in the business for money and I needed to change my thought process. I mean, the whole email response was negative. And you know, why did he need to do an internet search on me? You know, I asked him a question. And so I felt guilty that I may have been coming across the wrong way to people. And so I started to question myself, you know, to see if I was doing the right thing. And that's normally what happens when we get out there and we work to do something that we believe in. We're going to have some people that are going to make us question our decision. And a lot of times, people that actually question your decision, you know, didn't go into business for themselves, or if they are in business for themselves, they're scared you're going to be some strong competition for them. So I gave my mentor a call and I told him about the exchange, and I told him I wanted to email him my questions and the guy's response to see if I was being too sensitive. Well, he called me back and said he couldn't believe the response that the guy had given me based on the questions I asked, and he told me to keep on doing what I was doing. Not long after that, I received an inbox message in my Facebook account from a gentleman who is well known in the speaking industry. He's also a well accomplished author, and he made a run for Congress this last election. In the message it said, Myron, I looked at your profile, and it seems you and I have some common interests and share some of the same beliefs and do some of the same things. Why don't you give me a call, and let's see if we can help each other out? Well, let's be honest about it. I didn't have anything to offer him at the time, and he probably knew it. Well, guess what happened? First of all, this message came across at 5 a.m. on a Saturday morning. That's one thing you'll notice about successful people. They're never on any set time schedule. So all the questions started in my brain. Should I call him this morning? Should I wait until Tuesday because Monday was a holiday? Should I wait a week or so? Well, I went and woke my wife up and told her. And you know, we have to appreciate our spouse. I told her about the message in exchange, and she said, well, that means call them now. I called them. At first, I was just in listening mode. Then I realized I needed to be taking some notes. This gentleman gave me 35 minutes of his time that morning and never said you owe me anything. This gentleman never said, you know, I can't help you because I feel threatened that you'll be competition. I told him about the previously mentioned gentleman in the email and some others I had been on calls with, and he told me never contact them again, and he would always make himself available to assist me in anything I needed to move forward. He gave me a lot of valuable tips that morning that I had never thought about. See, that's one thing we'll notice about successful people, truly successful people. They will openly share their knowledge with people who have an appreciation. And the key word in that phrase is appreciation. You know, they'll willingly give information to serious people, not curious people. You will also notice they're not always looking for a dollar whenever they do something for somebody else. When we have an ownership mentality, we tend to take better care of things. You know, in our neighborhoods, if we see trash on the street near our home, you know, we should pick it up. You know, don't wait for somebody else to come do it. If there's a criminal element in our community, call a local law enforcement, because we want to protect the things that are ours. We tend to take care of better things that are ours. You know, a lot of us abuse things in one area of our lives and wonder why we fail in another. You know, it's because we have no respect for things that are not ours. You want me to prove it to you? When was the last time you treated a rental car like you owned it? An owner knows how to return phone calls and emails, even if it's somebody they don't feel like talking to. A lot of times when a person calls you, the second thing that they say is the original reason for the call. Business owners have to help people get to the original reason of the call so they don't waste time. A person with an ownership mentality gets frustrated very quickly when people are going on and on about nothing of value, especially when you've instructed them that you're in the middle of something. And the person keeps talking because, first of all, they haven't learned the art of listening, which is the most effective form of communication. And secondly, they feel like their time is more important than yours. I remember one time a friend called and asked me what I was doing, and I told him I was sending emails, and he started laughing. And he said, I thought you were doing something important, and you said you're sending emails. I explained to him that emailing in this situation was a big part of what I needed to do in business. And once again, I didn't have to give him that response. I could have just hung up in his face. When a person has no concept of ownership, they don't understand ownership and what goes into ownership. People who have an ownership mentality never expect anyone else to take care of them. If a person with an entitlement mentality loses a job, they would immediately go out and send out a whole bunch of resumes. Now, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I'm just saying we have to take care of our immediate financial situation. I'm not saying we shouldn't. What I'm saying is a person with an ownership mentality will apply for another job, but the entire time they're saying, I'm tired of going through this with whatever company I work for. This is never going to happen to me again. So they will start to work for somebody else, but they will be actively looking for another way to generate some income. They will continue to do this because they understand when someone else signs the paycheck, they can stop signing it at any time. A person with an entitlement mentality will always put their faith in someone else and their ownership. When we look back just over the last decade, the United States has lost on average over $50,000 jobs, $50,000, 50,000 jobs per month. That's just in the last decade, the last 10 years. We must start to think like an owner because business owners will always look out for the best interest of their business, not your job. You know, if it means laying you off to add more money to the bottom line, they're going to do it. You know, the biggest headache for a business owner is not the actual tools or machine to use. The biggest headache for a business owner is employees. And I don't know if anybody's ever told you that. In my own situation, I worked for a company that paid us well in the industry. And after being with that company for a little over a year, it shut its doors. I went to work for a very small company and the pay reflected it, but I was always actively seeking to improve and control my own situation. I worked there for 4 months and they were literally abusing me and my talent abilities because I knew the industry very well. They would daily add more responsibilities to me because of my knowledge base. And you know, a lot of times companies will do that to you. You know, they'll tell you, well, you know, we know you can handle more work. We just have a concern that you might not be able to handle more pay. They continue to take responsibility from others and put it on me. Because I always thought like an owner, I did the work without hesitation, but I was totally frustrated. I went to work for another company after that 4 month period, and after a few years, they started to lose accounts. You know, they got bought out by another company, and the integrity was a little bit different. The company had changed hands, and the new company did not have the integrity of the prior company. It was amazing to me that the powers in charge always emphasized the need for us to have integrity and character, but almost everything they did was questionable. Once they started to lose contracts, which should have been a red flag to me, my pay suffered tremendously. When those things started to happen, I was already in the pursuit of looking elsewhere, though. Someone with an ownership mentality or mindset recognizes before things go totally south that they need to make a change. I started working for another company part-time before I totally quit, and when they started to give me a hard time, I quit that previous company. When you're a person of integrity and the company you work for is not a company of integrity, you're going to eventually have problems because now your integrity and your character has to come into question. You know, you say you're a person of integrity and character, but you continue to go to work for somebody who doesn't have integrity and character. And so you have to ask yourself, am I such a moral person like I've been living my life to be? They will make life hard for you at your place of employment. Even the accounts I had at the time in that prior company were complaining because they didn't like me talking to the employees when I walked through the front door. And it wasn't that I was monopolizing the employees' time when I went in. You know, I'd go in and, you know, be about my work. And if I saw somebody passing by, I'd say, hey, how you doing? You know, how your kids doing in school and things like that. And, you know, I genuinely care about other people. And so it made it real, it made the bosses real uncomfortable. I knew the kids by name. I knew what sports the kids were involved in. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with getting to know people. It becomes real hard for a person who's in a so-called leadership position, and more times than not, it's a management position. Management and leadership are two different things. You know, in management, you're promoted there. In leadership, you know, you have to do the things to put yourself in a leadership position. And so for a person who cares nothing about the people that work for them, an outsider comes in and knows more about their employees than they do, they feel threatened. because they have learned nothing about the people that work for them, because they don't care. So when I entered the building, their employees were happy to see me. Does the company you work for make you compromise your beliefs and principles? Only you can answer that. The new company I went to work for, after a while I found out they had some of the same issues with integrity. I started to notice because I was mobile, they would pay me for my gas mileage. They cut out the gas mileage, and the only way those of us who worked for them found out was when we received our next paycheck. How would you like that? They started losing accounts. And all of the people that were doing the work for, that we were doing the work for, the accounts we were servicing, knew about this long before we did. But for whatever reason, they told them not to share that information with us. And probably because they felt like we would start quitting in droves. And so they cut our pay. And guess how we found out about that one? Our next paycheck. Never said anything to us. I quit again, and this time I said, this is it. I'm tired of going through all these changes with all these companies. And the reason we quit and we go to other jobs is because we're really not satisfied with the current job we're in. It's not because, they're paying us more, there's, or whatever, it's because we're not satisfied in more than one area in probably most cases. So this was the very first time in my life that I didn't have work, a viable source of income, since I was 10 years old, when I walked the neighborhood with my lawnmower. I was concerned about what would my wife think, and I actually wondered if it would be a burden on her. I went into a state of depression because a man's worth is in his worth. In a book I read, the first thing man was given was work before he was ever given a woman or anything else. Later on, it's amazing, I received a call from a company that wanted me to come and work for. And see, that's what happened when you create value in the marketplace. People recognize value. The lady said she got my number from my previous employer, and she told her that I was a great worker, and they were real good friends. Well, what she didn't know was when she told me who she got the number from, that was an automatic negative because I had no trust or respect for this individual anymore. This lady that I'm talking about was very deceptive, and if she was a friend of hers, I felt she was deceptive too. As I said, a person who works hard and smart will always be wanted in the marketplace. And if we work hard and smart for somebody else, why won't we do it for ourselves? Why don't we take these same talents and abilities and use them to our advantage in our own ownership? When we look around us, everything is moving into a direction of modern day slavery. They're talking about placing a cap on the amount of money we're allowed to save. Can you believe that? They're trying to tell you how much of your money you can save. There are mechanisms in place to turn over your retirement accounts to government administrators because they say they can manage your money better than you. How would you feel about that? How's that working out for you? There's talk about increasing the retirement age to 85. If you're tired at age 45, 55, 65, how you think you're going to be feeling at age 85? We have people in high places telling us we should be excited about working more service jobs even though they don't pay much. Now the same people who are telling us these things, their net worth is increasing by millions each year. They're taking vacations, it seems like every month. It's always in the news. We continue to give more of our personal responsibility away to others. We have others tell us over and over again that they are better administrators of all of our behaviors and habits. They're even trying to create software now where they can try to dictate what you're thinking before you think it. You know, did y'all ever see the movie The Minority Report with Tom Cruise? Because we continue to hear all of this, we have actually started to believe what we don't have. I'm sorry, believe that we don't have anything to do about taking care of ourselves. What is a modern day slave? Well, you have to ask yourself what a slave was or what a slave is. The dictionary defines a slave as a person entirely under the domination of some influence or person. When we think back to slavery, the slave was provided housing, food, and clothing. What's the difference today? Today, the employer is told how much house he or she can afford, what type of car he or she can drive, what types of restaurants they can eat in, what types of food they can eat. We are told this subconsciously because someone else signs the paycheck, so they control you and your family. Ownership is freedom. Did you hear that? Freedom. What does freedom mean to you? Since we have no concept of what slavery is, we think we're free. I have asked people over the years if they had the choice to make $200,000 on a job or $50,000 in a business for themselves, which one would they choose? It's sad to say, most people's responses were they'd want the $200,000. And so I explained to them, if you're in business for yourself, you have control of your income and you can increase it or decrease it at any time you want to. When we make a large income for someone else, they can always take it from us. When we make a large income, we have less and less time for our families, our friends, and our activities that we like to participate in. I remember working for another company as a manager, and our top boss had been divorced a few times because he always worked. Well, since he had no one at home, he wanted us at work all the time too. He had lost his wife, so he didn't care about our relationships and families. You know anybody like that? When I left that company, I was scheduled for 7 12-hour days per week. Now, I don't know about you, and I don't care how good of an employee you are, how good of a worker you are. After so many hours a week, the body's only going to produce so much. You're only so good for so long. You know, Cynthia's my wife. We weren't married, but we had been dating for 5 years at that time. And she told me I had become someone she didn't even know anymore. Is your loved ones saying that to you? Well, they might not say it out loud, but you have to ask yourself, are they even thinking that about you? If they have these feelings about you, that means your job has turned you into someone different than who you really are. We're so busy earning a living that we have forgot how to enjoy life. Or as Miles Monroe say, so many people earn a living, but they end up dying having never lived. Do you want that said about you? Is that what life is all about, or is it more to it than that? Was the goal to live like a hamster? You know, we get up every morning and know we're going to get on the same wheel and run around in circles every day performing for the people who feed us. You know, I have to say ownership is not for everybody. When we back through history, you know, most everyone owned a business or was in an apprenticeship role so they could learn how to go in a business for themselves. Along with more and more people leaving the farms and going to college, we lost the entrepreneurial spirit. By the way, I worked on a farm up in East Texas while I was in high school one summer. I totally enjoyed it. It was hard work, but remember, my dad taught me to work hard. We were sold on the idea that working for someone else was the way to go. We bought into that idea big time, and now we have about 5% of the people who own business and 95% who are employees. When we entered the 20th century, the ratio was the exact opposite. 95% business owners and 5% employees or apprentices. There's a book I read that says we should leave an inheritance for our children's children. That means things should be in place for our grandkids, financially, morally, spiritually, our belief system, our value system. You know, But how can we do that? We get upset about a person whose family left him or her a business and they didn't have to work and build it. That is what we are supposed to do. We always talk about this person or that person's money came down through generations. That's what we're supposed to do. We must stop pointing out what others are doing for their kids and do something for ours. We can only leave a business to our kids. We can't leave a job to the kids. You know, if you own a job when you die, you know, they'll show up at your funeral. You know, good luck for them calling your family and asking if they need anything. You know, don't count on that happening. You know, I heard a guy, you know, ask this question years ago. You know, how will you leave your kids when you die? He said, will you leave your kids billionaires? Will you leave your kids millionaires? Will you leave your kids thousandaires? Or will you leave your kids that money sitting on a dresser? Or we can take it one step further. Will you leave them loads of debt and fighting with creditors over what's left in your estate? How do you want to leave your kids financially? I remember talking to a gentleman about leaving something for his kids, and he told me he wanted his kids to struggle just like he had because he didn't want them to think everything was easy. Well, you can still teach them some things about life and what life means, and it doesn't have to be easy, but their struggles shouldn't be the same as yours. Why would we want our kids to start off bad? Each generation is supposed to be better off than the previous one. Our kids are actually supposed to stand on our shoulders to see further than we ever could. However, if they're standing right next to us, they can only see what we see. If all we have is an entitlement or employee mentality, what can we teach our kids other than that thought process? Why is it we encourage that the only route to success is to get a college education? We have bought into it big time in this country. 53% of college graduates aged 25 and under are unemployed. Is it working? You do better off going and get a job straight out of high school and getting you some tenure in that job, and by the time you come to age 22, 23, 24, when you graduate from college, you basically a veteran in your industry. I was at the shop getting my car worked on the other day, and the guy I was talking to told me he encourages his son to go to school because the big money is in having a college degree based on his experience. The only problem with that is sometimes our experiences are limited. Have you checked the college educations of the Forbes 400 list? I don't want to come across as a person who thinks money is everything. I just think ownership is everything. You know, but I don't want you to think that money is everything. It just affects everything. You know, it's not the most important thing, but it's up there with oxygen. People that say others focus on money, you know, it's kind of funny. They always at a place they call work earning money. So money is important whether you want to believe it or not. One of the mentors I had, he passed on a few years ago. He told me, he said, Myron, he said, if a person lied to you about not wanting to earn more money, you can't trust them in anything else. Because if they'll lie to you about something simple as that, what happens when you ask them something important? And you'll notice people who say that money is important most of the times have never turned down an hour of overtime. Figure that one out.